ideas are not what's built businesses, it's people.
ਹਾਈ ਪਿਚ ਰੈਕੋਰਡਸ ਅਤੇ ਵਨ ਵਰਲਡ ਪ੍ਰੋਡਕਸ਼ਨਸ ਬਰਮਿੰਘਮ ਦੇ ਸ਼ੋਅ ਦੀ ਕਾਮਯਾਬੀ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਸਰੋਤਿਆਂ ਦੀ ਜ਼ੋਰਦਾਰ ਮੰਗ ਤੇ ਇੱਕ ਵਾਰ ਫੇਰ ਪੇਸ਼ ਕਰਦੇ ਨੇ ਮਹਿਫਲੇ ਸਰਤਾਜ ਲਾਈਵ ਇਨ ਕਨਸਰਟ ਸਤਿੰਦਰ ਸਰਤਾਜ ਦਿਨ ਵੀਰਵਾਰ 14 ਅਕਤੂਬਰ ਨੂੰ ਸੇਵਿਕ ਹਾਲ ਵੁਲਵਰਹੈਂਪਟਨ ਵਿਖੇ ਟਿਕਟਾਂ ਦੀ ਪ੍ਰਾਈਸ ਸਿਰਫ 25 ਪਾਉਂਡ ਤੋਂ ਅਵੇਲੇਬਲ ਫਰੋਮ ਯੂਜੂਅਲ ਆਊਟਲੈਟਸ
CTS serving you since 1999. If you suffer an accident at work, call CTS. If you suffer a road traffic accident, call CTS. If you suffer a fall in a public place, call CTS. We will see you at home to start your case and have specialists and experienced lawyers ready to fight for you. CTS fighting for you. Deal direct with CTS for 100% compensation. Accident or injury, don't delay.
In October 2007, James Caan joined the panel of BBC Two's Dragon's Den. Caan has been characterised in the British media as both the calmest and most sincere of all the dragons. To date, Caan has invested in more than 10 companies. However, one investment that stands out is treadmills for dogs called Fit for Life.
When I invested in Dragon's Den with the dog treadmill, everybody laughed at me and they said, who on earth is going to buy a dog treadmill? But that sort of goes to show you, it wasn't really the idea, but I bought into the woman because I thought this woman can run a business. She was passionate, she was motivated, and she really believed in herself. And one of the questions that I asked her was, what's driving you? What motivates you? Why do you need to be successful? And she said to me that she was a single parent, she was living in a council flat, and she had 3 children, and one of her daughters is really smart, and she wanted to educate Elizabeth privately, which obviously is quite expensive. And so she was a waitress during the day, and in the evening she'd be online selling these treadmills. And something inside me said, this woman has got a reason to be driven. Her drive is her child's really smart, and she wants to give her child something better in life. Now, that's quite a personal motivation, and my senses were that she would probably do whatever it takes to deliver that for her daughter.
So, what's it like in Dragon's Den? Is there a lot of competitiveness? Do you all get on as dragons?
I mean, we are, 5 very experienced business people. We go into the show because we want to make investments, and we want to win, we want to succeed, and I can assure you, when there's a great opportunity that walks into the den, everybody wants the deal, and we are fiercely competitive because we all want the deal. So somebody's going to maybe pitch for a higher equity, I may come in with a bit lower equity, I may go in with another dragon. So when that deal is in motion, the tension in the den is unbelievable, because everybody's trying to second guess. So what's Peter thinking? Is Theo going to make an offer? Is Deborah going to counter offer? Am I going to come in? And it's incredibly competitive, because we are, I suppose one of the characteristics of an entrepreneur is you want to win.
Your family, how much time do you get to spend with them then?
Regrettably not enough. I have 2 gorgeous daughters. I have a 22-year-old and a 23-year-old. Both graduated now, both working, and I would love to spend more time with them, but I just physically am so chock-a-block every day. So I set aside a Sunday, which is kind of family day, which I spend with my daughters, with my wife, my mother, my brothers, my sisters, because that is a responsibility. I've got to give time to the people who matter. But my Sunday is absolutely chock-a-block. It is absolutely blocked out from 8 in the morning till midnight, because I've got to allow time. And I know it sounds really sad, but sometimes I have to put my daughter in my diary because it's the only way I'm going to see her.
How does she feel about that?
Gutted. I'm certainly not very popular, I can assure you.
In July 2010, Caan flew out to Pakistan immediately after the worst flooding in the country's history. His frustration and horror at the scale of the destruction compelled him to physically purchase, prepare and deliver emergency food parcels to starving families in the village of Nowshera.
I mean, that was the most, amazing experience for me, because I was sitting there watching, all the news and watching, these millions and millions of people who'd lost their homes, who'd lost their livelihoods. And I suppose, like a lot of people, I'm just sitting there watching and you think, what can you do? And for me, just writing a cheque just doesn't feel like you're doing enough. And, I watched it for like 10 days, and eventually I got up on Tuesday morning and I thought, I need to do something. And I literally called somebody and said, look, I think I'm going to go out there myself, because I'm just not convinced that aid's getting through. I'm just not sure whether people are getting the food that they need. And I'd like to go myself, and I'd like to physically go and buy the food myself, and I'd like to go and deliver it, to some of these people who desperately need it. So I spoke to ITN, who sent a film crew with me, and we went to Lahore, we went to Islamabad, went to Karachi, and I physically went out and bought, rice and lentils and milk and sugar and tea and biscuits and rusk, so enough for a family. And I bought 1,000 kind of boxes of food, to physically deliver that. I hired a truck, kind of 20 people, and physically drove myself, to Nowshera. I went to Sindh, I went to Multan, and physically with my own hands, delivered food to the people who were so desperate, because in some areas, they hadn't had food and water for like 3 or 4 days, which is absolutely unbelievable, considering at the moment the temperature there is 45 degrees centigrade. I mean, it's absolutely boiling. And if you're sitting there and you're starving and you're thirsty and you haven't eaten, it's really sad. And I thought, I need to do it myself. I wasn't feeling as though that we were getting enough through.
In 2008, Caan published his autobiography, The Real Deal, My Story from Brick Lane to Dragon's Den.
If I was doing 20 years from now, I'd be very satisfied. I think right now I'm in a great place. I enjoy what I do. My work is my hobby. I love what I do. I'm really passionate about being an entrepreneur. I love being a businessman. And I love the things that I'm able to do because I'm a businessman. Because if I wasn't an entrepreneur, I probably wouldn't be able to do some of the projects that I'm fortunate enough to get involved with. So for me, I think this is where I want to be, and this is exactly what I want to be doing. So pray God it doesn't change.
So is there any advice you give to our viewers out there who might be thinking of either starting a business or wanting to invest or do something along the lines, and get involved perhaps with some charity with what you're doing as well?
I mean, I suppose the advice I would give is, it's a bit really where we started. You need to have a dream, you need to have an idea that you believe in. But more importantly, the advice that I would give is, I suppose I'm a good example that, frankly, anything's possible. I wasn't born with a silver spoon in my mouth. I didn't have an amazing education. I didn't come from a very, salubrious background. I started in the East End of London in Brick Lane. I don't tick any of the boxes. If you were looking for a criteria, I'm probably not it. But it sort of demonstrates that if you have a desire, a determination, and you believe in yourself, and you are a good human being, there's nothing wrong in being successful, there's nothing wrong in making money. But actually, if you are in that position, I think it's kind of important to give something back too, because I think it needs to be a balance. Because, as my father used to say, you can only have so many meals a day, you can only drive so many cars. And there comes a point when I think if you are in that position, I've always found that you get far more pleasure in giving than you do receiving. And, I just hope to God that I'm in a position where I can continue, to be able to have best of both worlds, to be able to succeed in business that gives me the opportunity of making money, that I can actually continue to do the things that right now, at this stage of my life, probably give me more pleasure than any deal I've ever done.
Well, thank you very much for your time, James.
On that note,
yeah. Thanks very much for your time. It's been
fantastic.
Great.
Good to meet you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.